Kimberly Lynne, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thank you for having me. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, you bet. So if we could, before we get started, I wanted to just read a little bit of your bio and
Okay,
then get into some of the things that I've got some questions on that, and we'll take it from there. How does that sound?
sounds great.
All right. Kimberly Lynne is a transformational hypnotherapist and confidence and catalyst. Sounds super cool. You're a speaker, a podcaster, dedicated to helping women overcome fear, a lot of that these days, huh? Self-doubt and emotional barriers to embrace their most confident and authentic selves. After enduring over 20 years of chronic pain and debilitating anxiety, we're gonna dig into that, sparked by a home disaster, Kimberly discovered the transformative power of hypnosis. By applying the proprietary techniques she now uses and teaches her clients, she reclaimed her health, confidence, and purpose. And I just want to mention one more thing, and that is that you're the founder and owner of Lynne Hypnosis and Wellness. You're also a board certified hypnotherapist and certified hypnosis instructor.
Yep,
There's more to it, but I think that's a great place to
I
start.
know.
And because there's a lot there for sure. One of the things that this word anxiety that you have about overcoming chronic pain and debilitating anxiety, anxiety is a word that is used now maybe more than ever. It's pervasive in most everybody's life at some level. And I know some levels of it, it's healthy and it's good. We need to pay attention to traffic and don't step out in front of a vehicle and these things that give us a nice level of, I don't know if that's the right word to call that anxiety, but then there's obviously the debilitating stuff. So can we talk about that? What happened and how did you overcome it? So take us back this 20 years of chronic, that sounds like a long time
It
back.
was it was a long time. I like to reframe that word anxiety to mean
Okay.
the excessive or inaccurate feelings of fear. Because what you're talking about is there's two different kinds of fear. There's the accurate and the inaccurate. So the accurate fears are the good ones. Those ones help us stay safe, don't touch the burner, drive in the lines, that kind of thing, or stay away from the idiot driving like crazy. That's a good kind of fear.
Yeah.
Anxiety, I think, is an excessive or an accurate fear. We don't need it. It's not helping us. It might, and most of the time, it's not accurate to the setting. And so that is the problem. The good fears are actually not a problem at all. They're good for us. If that's okay, I like to reframe that. That's what I mean when I talk about fear and anxiety.
Can
But
we
I
get to
did,
manifestation?
yes, but I did have 20 years of chronic illness. So lots of chronic pain, lots of undiagnosed things hormonally, metabolically, still don't have diagnosis, but it's all been put into remission through the work that I did with the hypnosis. So what happened was after flying all over the country, trying to find answers and never really getting any, my family had a series of events where first we're a single income family. My husband lost his job unexpectedly. There was just the big corporate cutbacks and he didn't make it. Then we were selling our house and suddenly we didn't have an income. And then the house flooded and we lived in a hotel for 13 weeks. And let me tell you, we were really always okay, but it felt like every day I didn't know if my children would have a place to lay their heads at night because we didn't have money. We didn't know what was going on. It was very scary. So we were very home insecure. And going through that event, and then it was another 7 weeks until we actually bought a new home and moved into it and all sorts of other stuff. Oh, I was in a car accident during that time too. So once we got settled in our new home, it took over 20 weeks from the beginning of that to the end of that. I started experiencing the anxiety, like true, like off the charts panic. I felt like my consciousness was pulling out of my body when I was driving. I couldn't sleep at night. I was walking the neighborhood. I was having chest pains. I'd been to the ER multiple times, not having any heart problems. So it was no fun.
So
And
this just for clarity, this is after all of that
yes,
had already happened. This is after
yes.
all of the things you just mentioned. Okay, got it.
Yes, exactly. So I was at a new level of misery and I felt like I was going to die. I was only 39 and I thought, I'm going to die in a few years if this keeps going. I cannot live this way. I was completely felt like my life was non-functional. And so I started doing a whole bunch of the things that I did never consider before, the real woo stuff like Reiki and acupuncture, all sorts of different kinds of energy healing, spiritual work. And those things actually did help, but the problem always came back. Really, it was very similar to all the Western medicine stuff I'd done for the previous 20 years. And so none of those things are bad. They just did not address what was going on. And I started seeing advertisements for hypnosis because I was in those areas, and the algorithms and the bots knew. So they started shoving hypnosis at me. And I initially thought, that's crazy. I can't believe people do that. I really thought it was completely fake, and that people that did it were just like not grounded on the ground. But I was still miserable 6 months later. So I was like, what do I have to lose? I'm going to die anyway. So I might as well give it a go. And I did some research, found it to be much authentic, reliable, systematic. And I decided, if this person who I was looking at, she knows what she's doing, I'm going to go find who taught her. And I was too afraid to go to the hypnotist. So I just became one instead, and immediately started helping.
Wow,
I started practicing all the techniques, and immediately my panic and anxiety was gone in just a few weeks.
Hold on just a second. So you never went to a hypnotherapist?
Never been hypnotized before I became a hypnotist.
So the first person to hypnotize you was you? Like,
actually, technically, probably. I don't know. I'd never thought about that. In class, I can't remember what came first, the self-hypnosis training or being a practice partner with somebody else.
okay.
I can't remember. So it could be that the very first person to hypnotize me was, yes, maybe. I don't know. It was,
that's great.
They were like neck and neck. It was like, who knows? Photo finish.
So there was enough information for you to say, I'm going to go do this.
Absolutely. I just had a knowing. I just knew. I don't know how I know. I think there's much deeper levels to human beings than we are consciously aware, obviously, as a hypnotist. And I just knew that this was the answer, and it was.
Wow. So you said it cleared out those things. It cleared out how quickly was this after you became a hypnotherapist? Tell me how quickly. Those are huge things.
Yes, it was huge. So I immediately did see a reduction in physical symptoms and pain, but that didn't go away for a while because it takes the body a while to heal. Mass follows energy. So where my mind was focused, then the body goes, but it's slower because it just has to heal. But the energy, the anxiety, the emotional part got fixed very quickly. I never had another panic attack after I started practicing the self-hypnosis. The general anxiety that you were talking about at the very beginning that people are generally walking around with went away probably in 3 weeks or so. And then, it was a 10-day class. And so it was 2 weeks. So by the time I came home, I already knew 100% I was going to do this as a business, help other people. And physical symptoms, I would say, they really resolved in just a few months. My last migraine I had at about 3 or 4 months later. And so so many different things resolved given enough practice and time. But the anxiety, really fast, just a week.
So how long did the time after all of those events had happened, and then you fell into this really difficult time with anxiety? So how long was that leading up to when you became a hypnotherapist and got it? So how long were you in that state of anxiety and all the other rest of the stuff?
A little over about a year and a half. So all of the anxiety part started mid-February, or I guess I would say the 1st of March, 2018. I suffered that way, trying new things for about 6 to 7 months. And then Thanksgiving 2018, I told my husband, I think I'm going to become a hypnotist. I know it sounds crazy. Don't say anything. We'll talk about it tomorrow. And then I had already decided, and then I booked my class sometime in the spring of 2019 and got certified July 2019. So just over a year and a half.
Wow. So we're coming on 6 years.
Yes.
In the summer. So this summer will be 6 years. What has it, before I go there, so you ended up getting the certifications and the things that I read off earlier. As you're becoming a hypnotherapist, what is the significance of doing as I mentioned earlier, being you're a certified hypnotherapist and a certified hypnotherapist instructor.
Yeah.
Are those things that just come together, or is that a tract, or how do you make a decision on what kind of certifications you're going to get? And then what does that mean to people? If let's say I'm looking to connect with you and going, Kimberly, I think you can help me. Why would this be important to me?
Good question. So there's good things and bad things about the state of hypnosis. And I would say life coaching also applies in the United States, which is there's not a lot of laws regarding it. So what I suggest is that people make sure that when you go work with somebody that you've done your research and you make sure that they are qualified, because pretty much anybody could hang up a sign and say they're a life coach, they're a hypnotist, they're a hypnotherapist. There's no laws regarding any of those words or anything.
Yeah.
So the certification to me was always very important, because after doing just a little bit of research, I found out that there's a lot of people offering really shady training out there. And I didn't want to be aligned with that. I didn't resonate with that. I really wanted to help people. So the training I got was basic and advanced. It was like the basic hypnosis and the advanced technique. The method I use is called 5-path. There's more than one school of hypnosis out there, and I think they're all good. I do like mine the best. There's others out there. And so one of the things that was involved with that training is a membership in a higher professional group that you voluntarily become a part of, that you are voluntarily following the ethics and the standards of, to make sure that you are moving the profession forward and protecting all the people that you work with. So that was really important to me. So I suggest everybody look for that. So that's why it's important to you as somebody who's interested in getting hypnosis, is that they're not all created equal. It's easy. You could Google it and learn how to hypnotize somebody in probably 10 minutes. But how do you help them after you've done that? That's the important question. And making sure that those people that you work with are certified, and that voluntary association with a professional group, I think, is really important. It says that you care about your clients and the future of people to be able to access this modality in the future.
Okay, gotcha. It's an integrity move on your end, no doubt.
Yes.
To say, I'm voluntarily going down this track so that I can represent myself as a professional, and you can feel
Yep.
comfortable as a client that I've done that, and here's why. Did you say 5-path? That's the
Yes.
modality you chose. So why did you choose that?
I chose that one because it had been around for over 25 years and had there's not a lot of studies, especially with different methods out there. So you don't get to have that, but you get to see the reputation. And then when I was doing the research, I found that 5-path was the one that was less, let's say, subjective in its methods. It has a protocol. It's a set of steps that are all criteria based. And so the goal of it is to address root cause instead of just alleviating and giving a palliative sense of relief, much like taking an emotional Tylenol. That's nice. It can be very helpful to people to alleviate their current emotional states, but it doesn't solve the system long term. And the other thing that it offered was the self-hypnosis training, which is I would say the cornerstone over really what I do, which is I healed myself with this method, and my clients get that method. I teach it to them. And so working with me might be faster or more efficient for most people, but they get those tools, and creating independence is the most ethical model of healing, I think. Instead of creating dependence, like you just need the doctor more and more, it's not as ethical as creating somebody who can take care of themselves. So that's why I chose it.
Okay. So furthering on the point you mentioned of independence, is it this case where you can help somebody, they become independent, they're overcoming, you're helping them overcome, they're doing the work, and then now that's an opportunity for something else to present itself in their life that they can work on. So they can come to you with so your repeat clients could very well, and I'm assuming this so you can help me, are people that are seeing those results and going, gosh, if it worked in this part of my life, then I wonder if it can work in this other thing, since we're always working on something. Is that accurate? Does that happen where
It
you want
is,
them to become independent, but you also want them to look at other things they can make
yes, it
money?
is mostly accurate. and here's where I want to refine that, is that most things that people struggle with, I think, are related. Like they're all just branches off the same tree, the same root. And when people work with me, they generally find that those other areas that are not fun, but that's not why they came to me, get better. So whatever their problem is, let's just say they're having trouble sleeping and it's stress or emotion related, that often gets better. It's not a guarantee, but it often does. And so long term, I see, unfortunately, I just don't see a lot of return clients because they're usually really happy, but it is good for them. But the people that do come back, and I do have a smaller percentage of people that do return, it's because working with me is the right choice for them versus doing it all on their own. Not everybody is like me. I found very few people actually so incredibly motivated that they decide to become a hypnotist even if they've never been hypnotized before. That I'm just weird. I'm a little odd duck, and that's fine. Most people want guidance, and so they do come back, but that isn't to say that the tools that they receive aren't efficacious, because they are. The self-hypnosis that my clients learn really does help them stay emotionally and mentally hygienic and healthy. And sometimes it's just easier and faster to work with somebody else.
Mentally hygienic.
Yes.
That is an interesting term. So
you take a shower every day, but what are you doing for your mind?
No, I was just gonna put some brushing your teeth. I was gonna pull in something that hopefully we're doing every day.
Yep.
So that are these techniques and are the things that you're teaching your clients and helping people, is this something that they're going to that's going to now become part of their daily routine or their weekly routine or whatever? Is that how this works? It isn't come in, get better. You might not even need hypnosis or for a year or something. This is an ongoing thing.
Pretty much. I would say if you're the person that, yes, yeah, too many thoughts popped up in my brain, but the answer is yes, really. If you want your kitchen to stay clean, you got to do the dishes every day.
Yeah.
So if you want your mind and your emotional heart system, those emotions, to not be built back up and get to a place where you're absolutely miserable, you do have to do the daily maintenance. But it's not hard once you get it cleaned out. It's really just daily maintenance, just like taking a shower, brushing your teeth. Honestly, once you get to a certain degree, I tell everybody you should do it every day, but not everybody does do it every day. And the thing is that it's so powerful that really you can be a little inconsistent. I'm not telling my clients that, but you can be, because it's powerful and it's really helpful. And you don't have to actually do the dishes every single day and still not have roaches.
Yeah, it's still best practice.
Yes, exactly. It's nice to have a clean kitchen, but it's not necessary.
So you talk about mental hygiene. That is part of mental hygiene, is having a clean kitchen, but that's another topic.
I agree with you.
So that's a whole other thought process that I'm sure I should say that I could go down, and a fun one. So if someone's looking for that help and they're looking for a way to be able to have unexpected positive results from hypnosis, they're likely going to receive that through just going through this process of, wow, these other things, these other branches, as you mentioned, on the same tree, like things are just getting better. But it's not because it's just going to take care of itself. It goes back to what you just mentioned. This is hygiene. It's an ongoing process. And is it fun? Is this?
I think so.
You can tell your clients, okay, you're going to have fun doing this.
Yes. I think hypnosis is actually really fun. I liken the work that I do with my clients sometimes two different ways. It's like cleaning out the garage. So sometimes it gets, the dust is flying everywhere, but boy, when it's done, it is so wonderful to go out there and it's so organized. You can have your man cave, or you can go just work on your woodworking or build something because it's so organized and clean. But when you first get out there, it can be a little, so, it's okay to take it one step at a time. And so is it fun? Yes. Relaxing in the chair, taking the time to take time for yourself. I would say that those things are very enjoyable. I don't do like enjoyment or like trips to the beach in hypnosis unless people would ask for that. But I would say, yes, it is very enjoyable. It is not going to therapy where you talk about everything and then you leave feeling like it's still brought up and it's still right here in front of your face. With hypnosis and the way that I work, if something does come up, if we're cleaning out some particular grody stuff, we get to finish that job before the session is over. And it can happen really fast. So it's a lot faster than just talking about it, and the bow is neatly put on it before you leave.
That's interesting. So if people are looking for healing and for results, and most people would love to see them sooner than later, especially when you're talking about addressing emotional and mental pain and physical pain too, like you mentioned, just going through all that stuff for 20 years. So is it typical that it happens that fast? People come in and out of a session and they're seeing those kind of, I'm not suggesting that happens every time, but does it happen?
It can, yes, very regularly. I would say
Wow.
that in the very first session, the work is definitely not done. You're absolutely right. There's usually layers to things.
Okay.
And which is why I don't recommend just doing one session. I recommend usually, and that's for a consultation, but usually more than 5 or 6, or at least 5 to 6 minimum, because that's just the way that I, as the hypnotist, make sure I have enough time to make sure that client we have addressed all the potential things that could come up. So where was I going with that? I forgot.
It's okay. My question was, can it be done that quick? And you're answering it, saying it, yeah,
It really,
it can be done
yeah,
that. And
yeah. You feel better after each session, like more and more each time. So yes, even after just the very first session, you do feel better. Like I said, it is enjoyable. Your body does feel restored, but also you feel that there's been something cleaned out on the inside. So you're more empowered to do whatever it is that you came to work on.
it sounds terrific. This sounds great. And anybody listening would say, yeah, that sounds great to me. I'd love to do something like that. So what is the barrier? Why isn't this the thing that people would go to first to get these kind of results? And
I
I'm not suggesting that other modalities don't work, but let's say
Right.
somebody had the opportunity to go to 6, 7 hypnosis sessions rather than maybe
Yes.
years of talk therapy or some other things. So what is it? What's the stigma to it or something?
I think it's what I had. It's those people are crazy. I can't believe people do that. Is that even real? It's totally hokey, or it's not safe. It's mind control. It's really the misperceptions of movies and TV. And so the thing that we have to do is what we're doing right now is explain how it's natural, it's safe. Everybody's done it before, even if they've never been to a hypnotist. They've been in hypnosis anytime they watched a movie or scrolled social media. That's all natural. And they were not stuck there, and they were not under the power or the sway of the movie or the social media. They were able to pull themselves out and move on when they needed to do something. And so the misperception of it not being safe, it being mind control, is really the biggest barrier. So it is not any of those things.
Okay. It's not mind control. You're not turning people into thinking that they're chickens.
I would never even suggest that somebody do something that they didn't want me to ask them to do. Like, I'm on their team, right? Like, when they come to me, we're a team now. I would never suggest they do something that makes them uncomfortable. However, even if I did, they would be like, that's total bunk. I'm not doing that. Because in hypnosis, you have just as much willpower and self-determination and free will as you do any other moment. It's just a space where you can be a little bit more open, honest, and comfortable working on these issues. It's just more comfortable than normal, but it doesn't make you any less powerful or any less able to protect yourself.
Okay. Okay. So it is safe, ultimately, is what
Absolutely.
you're saying, as long as it's done by somebody who is trained and has like some credentials that you have. So let's say somebody they're internet trained, right? They just did a search and they did what you were mentioning earlier. And let's say in 10 minutes, they learned how they could do this. And like, yeah, I think I could do this. And they genuinely want to help somebody else. They're not going in with the intent that, hey, I'm going to go use this where I'm going to manipulate somebody.
Right.
I'm not thinking about that. Just thinking about, hey, I think I can help somebody in my family or friends. What is the danger? What could they do? It could be dangerous for somebody.
Hypnosis being something that your mind and your brain naturally do. Like we've done MRI studies, we know that there's actual chemical changes and different activations compared to a normal waking state. So we know that's happening and it happens automatically. So that though is not inherently dangerous or harmful at all. So hypnosis has never hurt anybody. So the danger is not the hypnosis, it would be the lack of understanding or awareness of that person who has good intentions. Do they know what to do when X happens or Y happens, or do they know what to do? And so I think the biggest danger could possibly be that something comes up that they're not prepared for, and it's something traumatic for that person to bring up, and they don't know how to help that person through that. Because I can tell you that everybody that you know walking around the street is carrying stuff around inside of them that is just unresolved. And so unless you have the training and you know what to do when that can potentially happen, it could be traumatic for them. It could be re-traumatizing, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that. I think it's important to bring that up for as we're talking through why are people hesitant to engage in it, or what are those things that maybe just have an idea that it could be back to the point you're making before. This isn't mind control.
Yeah.
Nothing. It's not like somebody who is untrained is going to put somebody in a state that they can't get out of, or it takes.
Correct. It's really that it'll just bring up stuff and then it'll be very emotionally painful and it will be unresolved. And that's what we don't want, because then here we go again. Hypnosis get not a good reputation, right?
Okay.
Because it already is struggling, and it's really not hypnosis's fault. It's just that person didn't know how to help that person. That's like I said, you can learn how to hypnotize somebody really quickly. So it's not that you shouldn't trust your hypnotist, but just as when you're working with anybody you're taking advice from, you should make sure that they are adequately trained and certified. So it's really working with a hypnotist. Truly, what you're describing, I've never seen happen in the state of Idaho. I haven't heard, that's where I'm located. I haven't heard of that really happening too many places. I think maybe once or twice in the past 20 to 25 years, I've heard that happening. And it was never with somebody who was actually practicing as a professional hypnotist. It was always people who were lay people that had learned it on the internet or in a book.
Okay. Okay, good. I appreciate you clearing that up, because I think that's important for people that are excited about something, but still have maybe those things in the way of them searching for it. So true. Let's talk a little bit about your work, because you've done some super cool stuff. And thanks for getting the stuff that I think is just in a lot of people's heads. So now we can have some conversation about your work. So people, okay, we've overcame that. People are like, cool. Then what does Kimberly do that is unique? And tell us about I know you've developed the 7 habits of dangerously confident women. So what are those?
I have already developed them. I'm currently writing the book. So that is a tentative title. It might change, but it'll still be those 7 habits or laws for women. And really what the idea came to me one day when I was just spur of the moment making a TikTok video, actually. And these words just came out of me. Do you want to be confident, so confident that you're like dangerously confident? You should work with me. And when I started going, wow, that's a really cool phrase. What does that actually mean? What do I actually mean by being dangerously confident? Because that's the journey that this process took me on. I went from being very anxious, panicked, my world was shrinking, to feeling incredibly bold. It's not just the absence of fear. It's actually the presence of a powerful, positive sense of awareness of who I am, of total and true equality with all people. I don't feel intimidated talking to anybody. And the paradigm of wanting to step out of my comfort zone and challenge myself and grow. So it's not just the absence of fear, it's the desire to move forward because of a deep, grounded self-knowledge.
Okay.
And so the habits came out of that. So that's the definition of dangerously confident. I'm like, okay, so how do you get there? And those 7 habits were how I clarified and codified the how do you do it? So it really is not anything to do with the hypnotic process that I do with my clients, but what is that set of things that I identify as being how you get there?
Okay.
So I think that answers your question. Is that good?
Yeah, it's great. It's great. How about this? Because you obviously you know what these habits are and you've been developing them. So is there one that you would say women struggle with the most?
That is a really great question. So the first habit, which I am going to be talking about in the summit, is all about self-care. And I will say that there is a stereotype for women that is glorified, which is that women be the nurturers and the givers of everybody in their circle, but to the extent where they become empty and they are no longer fueled by it is coming out of an emptiness, not out of an abundance. And so self-care, in my perspective, is something that you owe to mankind and you owe it to yourself because it's how we actually fulfill our highest purpose. We can't get there if we're on empty all the time. So I would say that I want to take away, not to take away from sacrifice, but to take away that women should give out of nothing and not take care of themselves, because actually it doesn't really work that way. Women suffer from 70% of autoimmune diseases and more anxiety and all sorts of other things at a higher rate than men generally. And I have a feeling that this has something to do with it. And if women were to take care of themselves the way men are already generally allowed to do, which is protect their resources, we would see a drop in those kinds of negative statistics for women. So the first habit is self-care, and I go deep into that in my presentation.
Okay. And in the presentation, of course, you're going to be covering all 7 of them.
Actually, what I'm going to be doing in my presentations, I'm actually going to be covering the first 2 habits, but more in depth. And I'm bringing in how to understand them, all the components, how to begin practicing them in a consistent way. But just doing a framework and a paradigm shift around, like I just said, how we view that habit of self-care. And the second habit is bold authenticity, being able to basically address in an assertive way who you are, what your wants, needs, and desires are, and just saying, this is okay. This is who I am. And I don't have to apologize or feel guilty about having healthy boundaries, having specific needs, that kind of thing.
Okay. Okay. So those are the 2 that you're
Those are
going
the 2. Yep.
because I would imagine here you don't have an entire day to be able to go through all 7, which I'm assuming would take a lot more than the time you're allotted to go through.
Yes. Unfortunately, that's different talk, but I think yes, you're exactly right.
Since that you're working on the book,
Yep.
and what's the projection for you launching that? Do you have that in mind?
I don't really have one. Let's just say we're talking fall 2025. Hopefully that happens.
Hey, that's around the corner, as crazy as it is.
I know. That's why I'm scared to say it. But sometimes being a little bit of an ADHDer, it's hard for me to think that far ahead because I have a million steps between now and then. And I don't have an accountability partner when it comes to my book, but maybe I should. Sometimes it's helpful when people go, when's it coming out? And you're like, I don't know, fall 2025. And that helps me get motivated.
Stuff just comes out of your mouth. You don't know why you say it. Sometimes you're like, this is interesting. This tape is
Going with the gut.
Because it's going to be fall. Yeah, going with your gut. Exactly. Just declaring it. And then
that's right. Manifest.
Hey, I've never written a book, but I know somebody that has, and a couple people that have, and it just seems like it's a lot of work. So I can imagine there would be a runway leading up to it. I hear you mention a word that is certainly important to me and a lot of people as well. And you mentioned it a handful of times. I just want to know what it means to you. And you mentioned freedom a lot. And what does that word mean to you when you apply it to your clients? Let's say freedom and results are going to be together. What would freedom look like?
That's such a great question. Freedom to me represents what you deserve. I think we come into our lives free. And then, as a matter of just being human, and things happen, and I don't know if it's parents or situations, whatever, we get burdened with things, we get pulled down. And then there's also like this just cultures and society around us and the rules that we have. So, freedom to me, for me and my clients, means that we free ourselves from the things that we don't need, all those unnecessary and excessive, unnecessary negative emotions that are holding us back from our freedom to be our true selves. And as long as our true selves isn't hurting anybody else, it doesn't matter what the rules are. I don't care what society says a woman's hair should look like. Should it be long and curly and beautiful? No, I don't think so. I think you can make the rules up as you go. And my hair is just one way that, of course, I love it, by the way, but it is a voluntary choice to say, I don't necessarily think that women should have to look any particular way. What do you think what in your life do you wish you didn't have to carry? Because it's not hurting anybody to not carry that. And that to me is freedom.
Okay. Okay. I appreciate you explaining what that is. That word, it's a big word.
It is.
It means a lot of things to people, and I think it would be important for people to know if they're going to be working. How would you define that? So thank you. I know that, you're looking forward to, as we all are, for the summit, the Prosperous Woman Summit that's going to be on the 23rd, 24th of April. So for people that are considering it and heard this interview and certainly more, you have a podcast and you're out there, you're a speaker, and you are an author on your way to publishing your book. A lot of things that you're engaged with, and a lot of stuff that you're doing. Why would this summit be a must attend? What is it going to be about this summit that you're going to go, look, you don't want to miss this? If you're hearing the things and you like what you're hearing right now, there's so much more to it. Tell me why this is because I know that's how you feel and how the other of your colleagues feel that it's going to be that. So why is that?
I totally agree with you. I think it is one of the events that if you are on any kind of self-growth journey at all, this would be the summit that you don't want to miss. And here's why. You've already said it. Why, if hypnosis is so great, why isn't it so hard to find a hypnotist, or why are so few people using it? Or why is it not the first thing that people think of? And our summit is going to help a great group of people dip their toes into hypnosis and find out how wonderful and great it is, and be able to find that particular flavor of hypnotist that you're looking for, because our summit has every single one of us is incredibly different. Our subtitle being wellness and abundance and health, I think. Oh my gosh, what is our tagline? You should cut this out, but what is our tagline?
No,
Hypnosis for health, abundance, and wellness, health, and abundance.
Okay, let's go with that.
Yeah. So our tagline is really describing the cross section of hypnotists that we have. We have people who are experts in menopause. I'm here for empowerment and deep self-growth. Sharon with self-hypnosis, and Sherilyn with all of her amazing herbal stuff. It's just, we have so many different viewpoints that you're going to find something that you identify with.
Okay, terrific. So for those that would identify, hey, Kimberly Lynne, that's my jam. That's the person I want to connect with. How can those attendees best prepare and get the most out of your sessions? How do they show up with, what can you set them up for the most out of it?
Make sure you register so you get all the reminders. Show up excited to shed some baggage you don't need. Really with an open mind, because I am not going to be talking as much about hypnosis. Nobody actually needs to know how the sausage is made. Really, I think it's important for the attendees to find out what our unique perspectives are and how we are specifically all unique hypnotists here to help you, and what we do. For all of the hypnotists specifically, to just be ready to have an open mind and hear what they have to say. There's so many amazing, they're experts in all their specific areas. But for me, just be excited to shed some of those and follow my lead. Like, I feel like I'm trailblazing so people can follow behind me. Get ready to get rid of the guilt that you feel when you don't follow the rules.
Okay. Yeah, you want to set them up to be excited about this, right?
Yeah.
To be an opportunity and terrific. So where can people follow you and learn more about your work and get prepared for the summit? Where's the best place you can steer them?
All right. So the first place is always my website, lynnehypnosis.com. I'm sure we'll have it spelled out in the description of the video, but it's Lynne with an E. And then on almost all the social media platforms you can think of, I have a presence. And my profile username that you always want to look for on all of them is at expert Kimberly Lynne. So they can find me anywhere, connect with me, send me a message, schedule a consultation, anything. Yeah.
Okay, terrific. And so I'm going to remind everybody the topics of your talks. On April 23rd, yours is going to be the Dangerously Confident Woman. That's going to be your session on the 23rd. And on 24th, it's going to be Unleashing Bold Authenticity.
Yep.
And I'm going to wrap it up with this last question, and that is, what's one powerful shift women can make right now to start becoming more confident?
Prioritizing yourself. You matter. Your happiness and your joy matters. And if you want to be as helpful as you can to other people, take good care of yourself, because you can't give what you don't have. So take good care of yourself.
Going back to what you mentioned before, and it's going back to what they're going to learn a lot more about at the Prosperous Woman Summit. So
yeah.
Kimberly Lynne, thank you so much for joining us. It's been super fun, and looking forward to seeing you again at the summit, where we'll do a panel and have a lot more fun there too. And appreciate you explaining what you do and how you do it. And for those looking to connect with Kimberly Lynne, we'll have that information certainly at the bottom of the video. And thanks a lot for taking the time with us. We appreciate it, Kimberly.
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.